Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cosmically Curious with your host, Gemini Jess. It has been a minute, I think almost a month actually, and I have been very busy with some summertime travel. Summer is in full force, but I am very excited to be back here talking about the astrology of the now. One of the most interesting things for me as somebody who has been paying attention to astrology for almost 10 years now is that even in my busiest moments and in like the busiest times of my life, even if I'm not actively checking transits every day, which I don't really think we should be doing anyways, but it's really interesting how I feel as if I am flowing and moving and dancing with the cosmos and the energy of astrology every day of my life. I often have moments of pause when I see the moon, when I connect to the sunset, but there really is something to be said for when you are actively paying attention to the transits that are happening, because I have not been paying as much attention to the weekly minute transits that happen while still knowing what's going on high level. But the moment I sat down to prep for this call, the first thing I did was look at what the current astrology is doing right now and kind of in the last week, so we can give a little bit of a refresh and an intro into where we are at right now and where we're headed through the rest of July. But the second I started to look at the transits, I felt this overwhelming sense of, wow, I'm living these transits, even though I'm not really paying attention to them. When you are not only working with the astrology, when you are working with yourself, when you are committed to growth and expansion and a way of being that is very present and honoring of yourself, you will find yourself naturally expressing the energetics in the sky because you are aligned to the natural rhythms. It's such a gift to be able to work with it and pay attention to it so that it can actually inspire and cultivate deeper exploration of these energetic frequencies and these experiences that your soul is trying to move through. It's as if life is always going to happen whether or not we're paying attention to astrology. But think about how much deeper and more visceral and also like quantum leaping that can happen when you take the time to be intentional with the way that you're consuming and participating in the astrology. So with that said, welcome back. We are going to talk about where we are currently at, and then I'm going to cover the next 2 weeks of astrology because I am once again going to be gone next week and traveling to Montana for a quick trip. So today is Saturday the 11th, and in the sky currently, we are in the thick of Mercury retrograde right now in Cancer. So if you have any planets in Cancer or wherever Cancer is in your chart, is getting a little bit of a retrograde fog over it. A sense of revisiting, re-exploring, things coming up in order so that when Mercury goes direct, we can move forward with a new sense of understanding and perspective around our past, right? Because the past is in the past, but it carries meaning and it provides insight and information into how we can ideally move forward in the future in a better, more productive way towards where we are trying to go in this lifetime. With it in Cancer here, there really is a emphasis on our past. Not only does Mercury bring up the past, but Cancer represents our familial bonds and our lineage and our ancestry and even our early childhood emotional experiences and conditioning. And so if a lot of things are coming up for you around your own emotional world, around your family, around how you nourish yourself and take care of yourself, That's part of Mercury retrograde. I think a great way to express how this is showing up in my life is I have been working with a new business mentor, and one of the things that she focuses a lot on is this idea of child consciousness, which is also my understanding connected to a thing in therapeutic language called internal family systems. But it's basically this idea of how we have all of these really sneaky behaviors and strategies that we created as children due to the environment that we grew up in that are unconsciously running the show. It's just another way to think of our nervous system, and our nervous system wants to be safe, so we create these strategies to stay safe and survive. I also think too, I will be traveling to Montana next week from Wednesday to Saturday, which is very much Mercury retrograde. Fingers crossed that travel is fine and dandy. Luckily, it's a direct flight. But Cancer represents our home, and I'm literally going to revisit the home that I had for all of my 20s and 10 years of my life. So I think that'll be a really beautiful experience to once again return and be surrounded by some friends that I've known for a long time and that do feel like home to me. Jupiter has officially moved into Leo as well, where she will be for the next year or so. I think towards the end of next summer she will move to Virgo. But we'll keep talking about this over the next year. But this really is like, if there was a time to fall in love with yourself and to be obsessed with yourself and to build up that self-confidence and that authenticity, now is the time to do it. I think there is going to be an increase in people's desire for creative expression and creative actualization of themselves and of their passions and ideally of their gifts too. While Jupiter was in Cancer for the last year, a lot of us were really diving deep into our emotional world, maybe resolving some family wounds. Wherever Cancer is in your chart, over the last year, Jupiter has hopefully upgraded and provided a lot of beautiful newness and abundance to that area of your life. More collectively speaking, Jupiter represents almost like trends that we move through as a collective. And if you look back in time and see it, it's actually pretty amazing to follow along. But over the last year, in the United States specifically, there has been a lot of conversation, not only of pregnancy and women having children, but also the matriarchy. Maybe that's just the world that I'm in online and in my social circles, but there has been so much talk about the value of a matriarchy and how it is not the opposite of patriarchy and its own whole separate thing. So lots of conversations happening about that. Also lots of things happening collectively around reproductive rights. Cancer rules the mother, the feminine, and I think a lesson that I learned and that I hope to take with me moving forward is that just because you are not a mother as a woman does not mean that you don't have a role to play in mothering the world. I do think that women hold a lot of power towards the future of where our country and where our world is going. Whatever direction that may be is still TBD, but I think that was a big thing that came out collectively. I also think more respect for women to be able to choose, because Cancer is a cardinal sign. Cancer is watery, it's emotional, it's mother, it's inner world, but it's also a cardinal sign. And I will die on this hill that like a mother, like a mama bear, Cancer is firm and strong in what they choose, in what they believe, in who they protect and take care of. So there's a strength, I think, that we have created ideally as women in our own inner worlds and potentially more collectively speaking around what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a mother, and how that can be different for everybody. We're also moving into a time which I'm super excited about as somebody who's like actively trying to grow a business and move beyond limiting beliefs and strategies to protect myself from rejection. I think we are all really moving into a phase where we are learning what it means to be more visible and to be seen. Leo is ruled by the sun. The sun gives us life, it's vitality. We all have a light to shine onto and out into the world. When you are looking at your chart and when you're looking at your sun sign, that is the energy that you, in a way, just naturally are. You just are your sun, and you shine that energy out towards others without having to do much. But if you aren't, brain fart, if you aren't expressive of that archetype, if you are shutting it down due to life experiences, or maybe you have other placements that are kind of louder than it, you will lose your sense of vitality and your, not will to live, but that brightness that shines through you. Like for me, example, as a Gemini sun, I love to learn. If I'm not learning, if I'm not reading a book about something, I feel like I've lost my sense of purpose. Truly. That's why astrology and I think building a business is so great for me, because I'll never get bored. There'll always be more to learn. There'll always be more perspectives to understand so that I can show up differently and better. Over the next year, I think we will continue to talk about Jupiter and Leo as it moves through this transit. The other thing that I want to leave you with here is the question of where are you afraid to be seen? Is it within your relationships, within your career, within a passion you have, within a creative expression? Wherever you feel the most fear of being visible, it's probably because it's deeply personal and deeply important to you. And really, there's a lesson that we will all be learning about our ability to be seen in our vulnerable but authentic self-expression, and how the desire and the deep-rooted need that we all have for external validation will never be as rewarding and fulfilling as the validation that we receive and that we can receive from ourselves, right? So there's, of course, with Leo, it's that courageous, brave lion archetype who stands out, loves their life, experiences joy and the rawness of human expression fully and authentically, and also brings people along on the ride. Leo people to me are the ones that cry at sunsets and sunrises. Like, wow, what a beautiful life we live. What a beautiful sunset. And of course, Leo looks at the sun and wants to cry because they see themselves in it, because they are ruled by the sun. So that's the Jupiter in Leo transit that kicked off a few weeks ago that we will be floating in, dancing around in for the next year. Check to see where Leo is in your chart, or if you have any planets in Leo, and Jupiter will be activating that area or those planets throughout the next year. So lots of expansion can be had there, not always for the best, of course, right? There can be too much of a good thing, as always, with Jupiter. The other thing that I want to touch on is Venus moving into Virgo, which happened on the 9th, so just this Thursday. And this is the first Virgo energy that we have coming into the cosmic juice of summertime. And this is really cool to me because, one, it's Earth, and we could all use some grounded Virgo Earth energy in our life, but it's really this idea of, with Venus and relationship and moving beyond a playful romantic experience within partnership and into a more intentional space, right? How can we be of service to the people in our life? How can we be of service to that which we value and care for in our life? It leads us into a little bit more of a practical expression of love and care and attention to the people in our life, and also to ourselves, of course, and the world around us. We can get so caught up in the Leo energy that comes before Virgo, right? The romance, the fun, the joy, the expression, the running around and having so much fun, going on the boat, going to music festivals, going to hang out with friends, going out and having a cocktail. And it's like, okay, well, what are we building here? What is happening beneath the surface? What is the foundation that we want to nurture in these relationships in our life? And that's not supposed to be boring, right? Sometimes people are like, oh, Virgo energy is so boring. They just want to be serious, make Excel spreadsheets and get better and improve. But we should have that reminder in our relationships. Where are we going with this? How can we improve? And it's not necessarily being super critical with the people in your life. Every time there's a Virgo conversation happening, there's going to be the conversation of being critical and criticism, both towards ourselves and to the other people. So it's not necessarily about being critical of the people in your life, of how you're showing up for the people in your life, but how can we improve? How can we make practical, small changes and adjustments to really support the foundation of what we're building in a relationship? There needs to be that check-in of, hey, where are we going? How are we doing as a couple, as a partnership? That's not even a negative thing at all. So it's just really interesting to be in the midst of the Leo Mercury retrograde energy and have this Venus and Virgo come in and be like, hey, remember why we're here. There's kind of two other parts to this too. It's like Virgo is very much an archetype that is in service to others, oftentimes selfless service. And so it's like, how can we really be of service and be useful to the people in our life, and not in a way that requires a sense of exchange, or like I did this so you owe me, or you did this so I have to do this for you. Not in that way, which can also be a very Leo thing, like manipulating situations and experiences, to get what they want. So it's not that sense of exchange, but it's just like, how can we be of true support and service to the people in our life while still having fun and having a lightness to our experiences with one another? I think the last thing here I want to talk about is, once again, the thing that no one is perfect, and we all have very unique experiences that we are moving through that can both make us feel very confident and can make us feel very insecure. And so I think the relationships that we have in our life should be a place to support each other, to be of service to the imperfection of ourselves, and the idea of being able to forgive people and not getting so caught up in all of the bad things they do. You know, to an extent, of course, if somebody's treating you like crap, yeah, you should not be allowing that. But, you know, we're all perfectly imperfect people. And I think there's a lot of love and unconditional love that can be found when we accept those parts of people for who they are, without trying to change or shift or improve or criticize them all the time. So Venus and Virgo will continue through the next few weeks. I think I honestly can't remember the day for when it moves into Libra, but it will be interesting because once it moves into Libra towards the end of the summer, early fall, we have the Venus retrograde, which is sure to bring some relational stuff. So honestly, now is a really, really good time, if you're in a romantic relationship with somebody, to start digging up the stuff. And I don't mean in a negative way, but I think if you can start to have conversations around maybe more sticky parts of your relationship, more foundational, grounded, money stuff, I don't know. But I think this could actually be a really good time to start having those conversations. So by the time we get to Venus retrograde, I believe in October, and during fall time, we will have a little bit of some resolve already. Because oftentimes for Venus retrogrades, which I don't need to go to right now because I'm getting ahead of myself, but Venus retrogrades will basically make or break a relationship for sure. Anyways, with that said, the last thing I want to talk about is that we have Mars still in Gemini here. And so we're very much being driven by a sense of curiosity and exploration for perspectives and information. And we're kind of like little bumblebees this summer, which I think is really supportive to the curiosity required for Mercury retrograde in Cancer, as well as the Venus in Virgo and Jupiter in Leo. So Mars in Gemini is behind the scenes flavoring all of this very differently. Of course, the tendency for mental masturbation with Gemini energy, as in opening up your social media apps every 30 minutes without even consciously realizing, getting stuck in news headlines that are making you spiral out of control. Very much a Mars and Gemini kind of thing. Okay, now let's talk about this week. That was a lot of recap. Wow, and I just have a lot to say about it. That's what happens when I don't come on here for 3 weeks. I have a lot to say. This week we start out with 3 planets in Cancer. We have Mercury retrograde, the Sun, and the Moon. So a little bit of swampy start to the week, you could say. Right on Monday, Venus comes into an exact square with Uranus in Gemini. So over the weekend through Monday, you may start to experience some sort of shakeup or insight around either a relationship in your life. It could also be around something with money and finances, your value systems, how you make the world around you beautiful and balanced. Maybe you decide to cut your hair out of the blue or dye it pink. I don't know. That could be very Venus-Uranus square, and then the hair lady doing it wrong, so maybe be careful with that. But there's a little bit of a restlessness and an unpredictability here around that. And when we have Virgo and Gemini squaring each other as 2 archetypes, there's this idea of being able to improve and discern, improve and correct or shift something that may not be working the way that you want it to work, or that may need just some attention around how you can better do it, and doing that through conversation and communication and kind of that openness that we can receive from Uranus in Gemini. I also think here Virgo can have a lot of expectations for the people in their life, and Gemini will most often not meet those expectations, and not in a way that is negative towards Gemini, but Gemini is much more flexible. It's much more versatile, whereas Virgo can get a little bit more stuck. Granted, Virgo is a mutable sign as well, so it does have the ability to shapeshift and adjust and move and change, but it is still an earth sign, so it does struggle with that a little bit more. So there's this idea of being open to the fact that what you expect from somebody may not be what you get, and that's not bad, that's not wrong. And so being able to evaluate your own expectations and kind of be real with yourself, like, okay, is this actually something that I need to bring up to them or not? And it probably isn't, right? It's like Gemini, that curiosity of like, this is probably just like a Virgo part of me that is frustrated because things aren't aligned up perfectly, or somebody is being too all over the place, or they're screaming too loud. So it's probably not that serious, but be wary through this weekend. Well, I guess you'll be watching this on Monday, so use this retroactively for how the weekend went, and then today as well will be kind of the peak point. And then on Tuesday, we do have the Cancer new moon at 4:44 a.m., conjunct Mercury that is in retrograde at 21 degree Cancer. So if you have any planets at 21 degree Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, what am I missing? Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, or Aries, you are going to be activated here. Also check to see what house 21 degrees Cancer is in and where that will be showing up for you specifically. But this is really a moment to begin again. This is going to be very reflective of your own emotional world and how you nourish yourself, how you take care of yourself, what you know that you need to give or receive in order to feel emotionally safe and secure. You can set intentions around what you want for your home life, or if there's something that you need to change within your home. Home just isn't a physical place, it's the people you surround yourself with. Do you want to recommit to building bonds with the people in your life, whether blood family or, friends and people that you meet? I think one thing for me that comes up here and that I plan to reflect on a lot more is setting some intentions around how I want to show up intentionally in my home over the next 6 months as I am exploring some new business ventures, and honestly just going to be really busy with my astrology stuff, and I joined a 6-month training program. So really thinking about what I know I need in order to feel emotionally regulated to be able to hold all the things that I'm going to have to be holding. So for one, probably need to do some sort of no phone around me at certain times of the day so I don't find myself in my bed just dissociating and distracting on social media. That's an example of how I will probably be working with this new moon. We do move into, after the new moon, we have an all-day void moon in Cancer, basically until like 6 p.m. And so Tuesday might be a rather unproductive day. It may feel a little bit swampy, like you don't really know where you're going, you can't really get much done. So I would highly recommend Tuesday to be a day to lay lower, do what you need to do. Just give yourself the time to be in the feelings of whatever you're feeling, especially because Mercury is in retrograde here. It's conjunct the new moon. It's in Cancer. There's not a heaviness, but an invitation to slow down and get under your covers, but not in a way that's dissociative or distracting, but really just honoring what your body needs in this moment. And also, if you wake up and you feel like you're ready to go, also do that. Don't take this as Bible, right? Whatever feels right for you, I trust you. You are an adult and you can make your own decisions. We have another void moon in Leo in Wednesday to early Thursday. So the first half of the week might just feel a little unproductive, I would say. But then when we have the moon go into Virgo on Thursday, there will be a lot of space to get stuff done, get a little bit more organized, and get that to-do list written out. I don't technically have any Virgo in my chart. In my Vedic chart, I guess I am a Virgo moon, so that's kind of interesting, but I love a good to-do list. I don't know if I've shown you guys my calendar before, because I still use a paper one, but sometimes I'll do something and I'll be like, oh, I didn't even have that written on my to-do list. I'm going to write it down just so I can cross it out. So it's like getting off on your to-do list. That's a very Virgo thing. So you'll be able to get a lot of stuff done second half of like Thursday into Friday. And then over the weekend, there's not too much going on. We do have Uranus trining Pluto, which is, I'm not really going to talk about because those are outer planets. That's more of a collective thing, which I just truthfully don't really feel like focusing on. Into Sunday, we have the Libra moon, and then Mars will sextile Saturn. So I kind of like this as a way to end the week because there's some scattered energy. There's the void moon, a little bit quieter the second half of the week, and then that Mars sextile Saturn, right? Mars in Gemini, Saturn in Aries here. It's like the scattered energy that we may be feeling from not getting some stuff done with the Mars and Gemini of kind of the bumblebee bouncing around, getting a little distracted, lots of open items going on, and then the Saturn in Aries being like, hey, let's just sit down, bust some shit out, and move on. So I love that. It's kind of like turning this into something a little bit more useful on Sunday. Really getting your priorities in order, making some decisions, because when I was thinking about this transit, I got the image of like lasers, and maybe just because I've been spending a lot of time at music shows and like looking at lasers because my boyfriend owns a production company and they put the lasers on for these shows. I don't really know how lasers work technically speaking, but if you've ever like seen the lasers, right? They're like, they bounce around, they do all these things, but there's a sense of direction towards them. They're lasers. They're like one light. But if I am correct, which I will have to come back and talk about this next time, but it's like the lasers they're LEDs, so they're these. Can you see my brain working right now? You guys, this is so funny. The lasers are LEDs, and there's 3 colors in them, and they laser focus into one color. That to me is the Gemini Aries sextile that happens. Aries can really laser focus Gemini. Now, not for very long, because Aries is cardinal, it gets things going, but it also is very passionate and fiery and like, oh, we're gonna do it, done. So that idea of lasers and how it doesn't really last that long, but while it's going, it knows where it's going, if that makes sense. Okay, I looked it up because I needed to know. So the laser projectors that I'm talking about that are used in music shows use the primary colors of light, so red, green, and blue. and they mix these base beams together to create millions of different colors and shades, which are then rapidly manipulated using ultra-fast mirrors to create dynamic patterns and music synced effects. So this is exactly what I mean. It's like the Gemini is the red, the green, the blue, the combination of every single color that you could ever make, right? With the primary colors. And then the Aries energy comes in and laser points it at something for a little bit. Now, it's not always long lasting because lasers are always bouncing around and doing different things and moving to the beat, whatever the new beat is. But that is the expression that I'm trying to get across for you with this sextile. So now that I've spent way too long talking about Mars sextile Saturn, y'all better be laser focused on Sunday, okay? Gonna say it. Okay, and now we are actually going to move on to the following week as well, because like I said, I'll be in Montana next weekend and I probably just won't have time to do this again, so I'm just gonna put it all in one, and as always, the timestamps are there. So the following week, Monday, July 20th, we start the week out with Jupiter trine Neptune and opposing Pluto. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about this because those are more outer collective planets and I just don't really want to spend that much time on it. But I will say that there is something happening in July that a lot of astrologers are talking about as a configuration that has been talked about for years and years, and they knew it's coming. I think it's called the cradle, or I don't think that's right, but it has to do with all of the outer planets coming into these certain trines and aspects with one another, right? We have Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus and Gemini trining each other, and then we also have something with I can't remember what it is, but then there's some sextiles that are happening. And either way, this is a really, I don't know. I mean, you see things online and people are like, the collective is shifting, the consciousness is upgrading. I don't really know what that means, but I think July is supposed to be a really interesting time energetically for the state of our world and for our consciousness, and I honestly don't know enough about it to verbally express it to you, so I'm just not even gonna try. But if you are really curious and you want to learn more, I would recommend just literally Googling the Barbault basket, Barbault. It's a rare celestial pattern where all 5 outer planets, right, and they're all in sextiles. That's what it is. Okay, that's interesting. So Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So they're interlocking that are designed to trigger a major wave of global innovation, spiritual growth, and cultural revitalization. And it's centering around the exact Uranus-Pluto trine. So that's kind of high level what's happening. So if you want to learn more, Google it. The Barbault basket or Barbault cradle. Yeah, because I have consumed a lot of information about it online, but I have kind of just half-assed listened. But in terms of more interpersonal astrology that we can work with, on Wednesday we do have the Sun officially moving into Leo, joining up with Jupiter pretty quickly as well in a conjunction. And this is once again going to be enhancing and highlighting the themes that I talked about with the Jupiter and Leo transit, right? The Sun is in Leo, so we'll be feeling this extra right now as we move through summertime, wanting to be more visible, wanting to lean into confidence and a sense of self-expression that ultimately feels very good and is expressive of your natural gifts that you have to share with the world. What is your relationship to visibility? Really learning to take the risk with that, titrating, putting yourself out there in front of the world for whatever you're passionate about, whatever that may be, whether that's in dating and wanting to find somebody that you want to build a life with and that you want to have a more serious relationship, or if it's in business and showing up online, whatever that may be. Now is a really great time to lean into that. I will say I am going to be hosting my first online breathwork journey called Breath with Jess, and it's going to be on the 21st, the Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time. So send me a message if you would like to join. I just need your email to add you to the list. And we will be actually moving through a breathwork journey where we are going to be tapping into the courageous energy of Leo. And the cool thing is you'll get the recording after, and my recommendation is going to be that you listen to it twice a week throughout the whole Leo season, so that you can continue to tap back into that energy and let your body become become accustomed and familiar with what it feels like to be confident and be visible and be fully, authentically expressed and actualized in who you are. Another thing I want to note here with Leo season, as well as we are coming to an end of Mercury retrograde this next week. It ends on the 20th. This idea of performance and manipulation. This is for Cancer and Leo both, in the way that there's a tendency to emotionally manipulate Cancer, emotionally manipulate, and Leo, performative to get what you want, to get the validation you need, to get the emotional security you need from somebody. And that can be a very shadowy, I guess you could say, part of Jupiter in Leo, is how you have emotionally, not even emotionally because it's more Leo, but how you perform and manipulate situations to get that sense of validation and approval, and where you can start to source that approval from within rather than from external sources and people, where we manipulate for love, because love and belonging are two of the most important things that we want and desire as humans, because it signals safety and survival. When we do not have that, it is threatening to our survival. Where do we manipulate? Where do we perform in order to get the love that we need? And is that truly love if they are giving it to you from a false sense or an untrue expression of who you are? I don't know. That's for you to decide, but really pay attention to where you manipulate situations to get what you want and what you need. Yeah, I dated somebody over a year and a half ago, and there were some Cancer and Leo placements there. Looking back to some of our relationship when we were moving through a breakup, you know, I was not perfect by any means. I was avoidant. Like that's 100% true. I was not perfect here. But I do now see where some unconscious manipulation was happening in terms of him wanting to keep me in his life for a variety of reasons we don't have to get into. But my avoidance was like, I have to go. I gotta get out of here. And his anxious attachment, the Cancer Leo manipulation, doing anything to get that love and that validation that we all so desire, where I was trying to get the heck out. So very interesting to think about and look back on. But like I said, I'm not putting the blame on him. I was very imperfect and very problematic in that relationship. So then on Thursday, we have the Sun in Leo square Chiron in Taurus here. While I'm talking about manipulation to be seen, to be validated, to receive love, this plays into this a lot, because it really is going to bring up those wounds that we have around really being seen, and the ulterior motives and the unconscious reasoning for why we perform the way we do, and where that comes from, and also how our worth may be tied to other people's opinions and validation of us. So really learning how to resource ourselves. Coming to my breathwork session on the 21st will be very helpful for you to learn how to resource yourself physically through breath work and nervous system regulation. I had this vision come through when I was thinking about this transit of, you know, you're standing on stage, you just finished this huge thing, you're like, your arms up, you're breathing so hard, you know, you're like, I just did this thing, I just ran this mile, and you're waiting for the crowd to cheer, you're waiting for that obvious validation that you did it and that you got it and that you're loved and you're seen. And what if there's crickets? What if nobody cheers? Can you cheer for yourself? How are you going to handle moments where you feel like nobody's cheering you on? And you're like, I've just done all these things and nobody's paying attention to me. Nobody's looking at me. And so that's a lesson here to also cheer the people on in your life. Be people's biggest cheerleader. Leo is the cheerleader. And they do that because they want to be celebrated in the same way that they are celebrating people. So cheer on your people. Send that text that's like, you are doing so good. I see what you're doing. I support you. You've got this. That goes so far with people. So that could be another really good Leo season thing. Another thing here in terms of people who are visible online, fuck the metrics. Numbers don't mean shit. You can have 100,000 followers and be making zero money because numbers mean nothing if you aren't authentically engaging and interacting with these people in your follower list. Truly. I went through a phase where I was like trying to grow my account and I realized, I was like, wow, these followers mean nothing. They're just empty names, an empty addition to my follower list, because if I'm not engaging with these people, they're not really real. They're just there. So fuck the metrics. Sun and Leo lesson here. And noticing when you may feel exposed or sensitive when you're showing up in these big and bold ways, and allowing yourself to move through the self-doubt and continue to step forward even when it feels really scary, or when you're wondering why nobody's booking, or when you're wondering why nobody's cheering you on. We have to be a little cringe. We have to be vulnerable and step out in order to be received. Now, we might not always be received in the way that we want or at all, but that's all part of the process, I think, with the Leo energy. And I think, too, the lesson here that not everybody's going to like you. You could be the juiciest peach in the box, or whatever the saying is, but some people still just don't like peaches. That's inevitable. And how does me saying that make you feel? What does that bring up for you? And then on Friday, so 2 weeks from now, Mercury is officially direct. It's going to come into an immediate sextile with that Venus in Virgo. So really providing us a sense of organization, Excel spreadsheeting around the conclusions that we made during Mercury retrograde, the exes that came back into our life, the apologies that showed up, the technology that got broken down that we now need to buy something new for. We can really step into the end and last week of July with a sense of like, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to move forward here now? And then on Sunday, the 26th, we do have the nodal axis shift to the Aquarius and Leo archetypes from Virgo and Pisces, which I'm going to wait to talk about that until next week. So that is all I have for you. This was a big episode. Thank you for sticking around. In terms of ways that you can work with me right now, I have my first breathwork journey. It's currently free. I'm so excited about this, and to share breathwork with you all and blend it with astrology so effortlessly is so exciting. I'm already choosing the music that we're gonna have guiding us. I'm figuring out the breathwork techniques that I want to use, and I just honestly cannot wait to share. So if you're interested, send me a DM on Instagram or respond in a comment and just drop your email, or I'll reach out if you just say you're interested and I can get you added to the list. My books are open for July. I have my one offering for my Alive astrology sessions right now that come with a 30-minute integration call after, where, you know, completely customizable to where you are at in your life, what you are currently moving through. And then I also have my cosmic breakthrough sessions, which are free 25-minute short calls, very quick but very effective, to look at any sort of emotional or internal block that you have happening currently in your life right now, and using your astrology to fully untangle that knot, work through it, so that you can really move forward intentionally and get out of these cycles and loops that we find ourselves stuck in. So those are a few ways that you can work with me right now, and I hope the next 2 weeks of July treat you very well. I will be back to chat about the last week of July, and before you know it, we'll be in August, and life keeps moving. The astrology is astrologizing, and it's my invitation for you to not just consume this information, but to really start to let it show up in your life in the way that you move, in the way that you make decisions, in the way that you have conversations with people, so that you can truly participate in the astrology rather than just consuming it. And as always, stay curious. I love you guys.